What's good, traders? It's Saturday, April 5th, 2025. You already know what that means. It's time for the weekend video, weekend recap and forecast video. Um, Off top, you're already aware if you been keeping track of the markets. We done sold off, hit all major objectives to the downside, and we left ourselves Friday in a bit of a conundrum. Where do we go from here? In this video, I'd like to make the case as to why it may be time to look for longs in this bearish market, right? Saying that I'm looking for longs doesn't mean that, I'm looking for all-time highs. It just means that maybe it's time for a counter trend rally. Counter trend meaning against the downside major trend. 8 to 10% to the upside at some point during this week. In this video, I like to cover what levels we might be able to get active at, and also in gold. In this video, I like to cover why it may have taken a short-term top, and we might be able to catch some moves to the downside. So anyway, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on those notification bells, and let's see what opportunities we could take in this market. Alright, so starting off with NASDAQ on the monthly time frame chart. If we remember back on our last weekend recap video, or was it the midweek video? Regardless, on the last video, we took a look at the monthly candle, being that March was about to end, and the next time we spoke, or we were together, we would be on a different month. And we talked about this level down here as the only MA available. We still haven't quite got there, but I think there's a decent chance we could get there to find it as support. That level being 16.8, anywhere between 16.850 and 16.5. So just going into this weekend recap and forecast video, just mindful of this level as an area of support, to possibly look for some counter trend long. I say counter trend because on the monthly candle, after breaking these equal lows, that did put in a lower low. Where the lower low extension terminates is still to be determined. However, there should be a decent counter trend move to at minimum find a lower high, right? So they're somewhere around 19K. So just setting the context on a high time frame chart, not really looking for levels to actually get active, but just where are we with our lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, and then now making our first lower high. We should look for, at some point, whenever we do start finding a bottom on this leg, we should be looking for, as far as the counter trend up move, where the lower high comes in at. Let's switch down to the weekly. So down here, I think that level was, what was that level on, what was that level on? It was 16.8. So on the momentum chart on the weekly, looking for supports around the 16.8s. We do have this level right here. That's at 17.1. As a level, so 17.1 to 16.8 in that general area. If we do break that, we have targets as low as 15,200. I don't think we get all the way down there without, again, some counter trend move that gets us up and then back down. Going into this week, although ATR and volatility have widened, again, just after such a precipitous drop, some counter trend, maybe it's only a day or two, but some retrace of this down move wouldn't be uncommon, right? Where like you could see back here in the past where we had this long extension down, these green candles in between the reds, you can't just go in just shorting all the lows without expecting some counter trend move like these. They're small in the grand scheme of things, but from low to high from the low of this wick to up here is still a 10% bounce, right? From this low to this high, another 8% bounce, and from this low to this high, 15% bounce, right? All while we were moving to the downside on the actual trend, going down about 32%, right? So when you look at where we currently are, in this down leg that's void of any 8 to 10% bounces, where might you expect some counter trend move that could get us 8 to 10%, pretty much putting us back below 19K, finding resistance below the breakdown? That would be in this general area. So that's why I say coming into early in the week, and we'll get into it in a minute as far as the eco news. When we look at the calendar for next week, I want to say Monday and Tuesday there is no news, and then we just have inflation prints on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So with the no news Monday and Tuesday, coming into Globex on Sunday, is it possible to see, after such a precipitous drop, 8 to 10% bounce in the markets, to find and put in a lower high to reshort for lower prices, considering that, like I said, we have started a monthly downtrend. Let's get down to the daily. And like as I say, we do have moving average support between the 17K and the 15Ks, somewhere around this 17K, 8 to 17K. Again, looking for a counter trend move, nothing spectacular, but getting back up to 19K even, in that ballpark, to find another short for lower, or to just sit on your hands and gauge to see if maybe all of the macro events that spark this downturn, maybe there's a solution for them and we could rally. I'm not in that band count, but regardless, getting up to 19K would not be, it would not surprise me if we got, again, a counter trend move to this downside sell-off that we've had over the last few weeks. All right, we'll just drop down to the 4-hour and see what we can see here. Again, precipitous drop, but is there room for a counter trend rally, getting us back to 19K? There most certainly is. It'll allow these moving averages to consolidate a bit, and if they want to unwind again, they could do so. Last time frame, the 1 hour, this was again a cascading sell-off. Is there room for a counter trend rally coming up to the 19Ks? This little support that retested as resistance, and see if we are going to break to the upside or down. Yeah, there is. And let's just look further down the time frames. It's just been a massive sell-off, and if you've been watching momentum movers here on the Wednesday midweek recaps, and the weekend recaps and forecasts, we've been looking for this for quite some time, for a decent amount of weeks. So I'm not surprised at the sell-off, but there's a lot of people that are just now getting in tune with the sell-off, and they'll be selling. And after you've already come so far down, I wouldn't say that now would be the time to sell. If you didn't sell higher, you don't want to sell at the lows, being that you might get that counter trend 10% bounce that may provide you a decent opportunity to actually get out. But enough of that. Let's look at the levels chart. Now that we've considered momentum, these are the levels. If we go back to previous historical price action, this first level up here, first set of levels, this range between 17,174 and 16,400, that's where I would be looking again for that bounce. And when I say a counter trend bounce, like say I don't know, on Globex we have some kind of gap down, you know, a gap down that produces, you know, like say this is a I don't know, a daily, weekly candle, some gap down that produces some support, you know, respects some support in this area, and starts us on a retrace of some of this down motion that you could find a lower high to short at a later time. Basically, anything like this that builds structure is what I would be looking for early on in the week. I know we did close on the lows on the Friday session, so having a gap down on Globex open would not surprise me. Where that gap, you know, whether it's at the low of the range, mid of the range, top of the range, you know, and does it keep going and gap lower? That part I'm not sure, but some type of structure being built in this general area where previous structure has been built in the past. If you could see, if we zoom in and looking at these areas where coming to the upside it was resistance, we had it as support, looked inside again, rallied, found it as support, broke below, found it as resistance, and broke back out above. Many times in the past, this range, this first upward range, has been support and resistance for moves. So you know, as we approach it again, where, you know, this was a decent range to trade in the past, and we found support before we broke out in the new all-time highs. Now that we're coming back down to it, is it, you know, would it surprise you if we had some price reaction, if price reacted to levels down here? That's basically all I'm saying, is that when we look at the momentum chart and consider where momentum may shift for a counter trend move, and then we look at where we are now in relation to previous past, you know, price action, I just wouldn't be surprised if we found some structure to be built here to trade to the long side, and then see if we could, you know, continue a downtrend at a later date, right? So, you know, whether that move happens up here or down here, you know, again, because we could say the same, like maybe, you know, maybe this sell-off is more, you know, is more precipitous, you know, it's very bad, then, you know, maybe we do come down here to find that support where we had, again, in historical price action, these two ranges. These are the two ranges that I'll be looking to get active in pretty much early on in the week, right? And these are the exact levels of the boundaries of those ranges. If you want to pause the video, put them on your chart. I think that regardless of which way you want to get active in these markets, to the long or the short side, these levels will be the levels that allow you to limit risk the mostly. 17,174, 16,486, 15,402, should we get that low, and to the very extreme 14,857. Getting below that would be, I mean, that'd be insanely bearish. I'm not saying that we can't get there, but as far as levels on the table for this week, you know, just trying to see if we could stay bound by the upper range. All right, from here I think we'll go ahead and take a look at gold. All right, so taking a look at gold GC, starting off on the monthly chart, it's still bullish. I'm not sure what's going on with the momentum down here. Excuse me, apologize, but I would expect these moving averages to continue to come up. I know the crossover that happens between this blue and this gray is usually epic for another pop in the direction of the cross. However, I don't know, I think we should watch it coming in the next few weeks, 2 months. Let's go ahead and drop down to the weekly. So just off inspection, again, it is still bullish. Momentum is still expanding to the outside. However, price itself has retraced a bit. Going down to the daily, I would say gold is at somewhat of a precarious place. I mean, it doesn't have too much lower. Getting below 3K, we could see a decline in gold, kind of like we've seen in NASDAQ as well. In the 4-hour, same. So high, not macro like weekly and monthly, but high time frames like 4-hour and daily. They are showing some signs that momentum is waning. If it's to continue to pick up speed, gold would want to get back above 3,100, 3,113 in that ballpark. Let's go on down to an hourly. So yeah, getting above the 3,100s, and pushing, further all-time highs would be, the MO goal would need to take going forward. Sustaining prices, down here by 3K, close to, if not under 3K, is kind of detrimental for the momentum, as far as the momentum is concerned in gold, being that, again, this monthly time frame, it could as bullish as it is, there is a case for it to quickly switch to being bearish. So if I were to just, with all that in mind, if we go ahead and just take a look at the levels chart, when we last spoke, I didn't have any levels on gold. I just pointed out this parabola that gold was in, and I think I said something about buying gold around 30.84, somewhere in this general area, which did produce a decent bounce on the mid to low time frames. It was, I guess it was this bounce right here, right? Is that, yeah, 30.84. It got you all the way up to 31.62. However, where we sit right now, we're below that parabola, right? And it's my belief, it's just the way I trade parabolas, but parabolic moves break down parabolically. That's just a saying I always like to keep in the back of my mind. Where does this turn back into an uptrend is when we cross back, say this was just a look below and it fails to break down. If we get back inside the parabola, so getting back above, like I say, 30, I would call it just 3,100, 3,180, not 3,180, 3080 to 3,100, that little range. As long as we're below that, I would find some resistance. We don't have much, being that we're pushing all-time highs. But somewhere in the ballpark of this balance range right here, well, it's not a balance range, it's a area in between balance ranges, right? As long as we're below that, I would be bearish on gold. Considering a possible retest and rejection of it for a further downside sell-off that may turn bullish at a later time, right? If we could get back above it, that's where I get, bullish. If we could maintain structure above it, that's where I get bullish for gold to continue higher on its parabolic move, right? But down, as long as we're below that level, this lower path, and I'll turn it a different color, and I'll turn this to green color, right? This is where I'm bullish on gold, as long as we're maintaining above 3,100 pretty much. So if I had to give it an over-under, 3,100 would be my level. Below 3,100, I would be targeting 2,800. Above 3,100, I would be targeting new all-time highs. And it's pretty much binary, just like that, 3,100 above or below. But yeah, I think that's all there is as far as gold and NASDAQ. I want to say we do have the eco news. We could go ahead and cover that as well as far as the calendar. Again, Monday, no real news. Wait, this is last week. Let's go with this week. Yeah, Monday and Tuesday, no real news. We do have FMOC minutes on Wednesday. That's not till 1 o'clock. And then Thursday and Friday, we have inflation prints. So I really don't see any catalyst news-wise until the back half of the week. I think earnings season is starting up, but even on the earnings calendar, as far as market moving events on there's nothing really until you get to the financials, and they don't report until like I think Friday. So most, more than 50% of this week will be dead, save that of like any tariff talks or tariff retaliation news headlines from other countries. I think that's where the ears in the market will be lending their ears to news as far as tariffs, being that the eco calendar is pretty much dead for the first half of the week. And when you overlay the fact that we are extended, I think a dead area in the news calendar will allow again for a counter trend rally. So early on in the week, Monday, Tuesday, first part of Wednesday, I will be, not anything could happen, but I will be open to taking loans in NQ and considering shorts in gold, right? Now after we get more clarity on the path forward concerning tariffs, after we get these inflation prints, things of that nature, then we could see, where we are as far as the grand scheme of things, the trend down in NASDAQ or the trend up in gold. But both gold and NASDAQ have picked a direction and have trended in that direction pretty aggressively. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the first few days of this current week coming up, we see some counter trend, correction before that major trend continues. All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up there. So I put our levels in the usual spot. These are the levels where during the course of this week, going into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the back half of the week, being that we don't have any news on Monday or Tuesday, where I think we may be able to get active. So whether the trend continues on Globex Open on Sunday and then we get a rebound, however it plays out, these four or five NASDAQ levels and, in particular, this over under gold level is where I'd like to get active during the week. Stay nimble, keep your head on the swivel, trade well, trade smart, trade on. Darnell Pryce out. Oh yeah, and don't forget, like I say, hit that like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and be here. Make sure you catch the Wednesday midweek recap video. All right, y'all be easy.